This is about Wikipedia as a tool for science outreach. And this is me. And the funders I list here are not because I'm a successful researcher. This is because the funds here, or the funders here, are the ones supporting my work on Wikipedia. So all of these have been funders of what I do. And at the moment I am at the Uppsala University working with this. So if you are applying for funding and you are then perhaps mentioning Wikipedia as something where you want to use in your science outreach, you can know that they have been supporting me. Adding them to your research proposal is not a guarantee for you getting funding, just so you know. But at least it's a good chance, and this is something you can use. I will start by the words by Jimbo Wales, who created the Wikipedia. He said, "Imagine a world in which every single human being on the planet has equal access to the sum of all knowledge." And that's the goal and the vision of Wikipedia, that everyone should be reached by the information that is. And we have a chance here to participate and be part of it. And I usually talk about Wikipedia as the impossible project, because you know how internet works and how Twitter is used and Facebook is used and so forth. And if 20 years ago when Wikipedia started, if one would have said that, okay, let's create this website where anyone can write anything about anything and make this the most trustworthy source of information we have, you would say that's just impossible. And yes, Wikipedia is impossible in theory, but it works in practice. And that's what's so nice about it, because people are there reading things, seeing that things are wrong, correcting them, and so forth. And this is ongoing all the time. But we lack the researchers. I guess it's like for you, the same for me, that we use Wikipedia when there are things we don't really know, and we read about them, but the areas that we actually do know, we don't really touch on Wikipedia because we have better sources to go to. It's kind of like when you open a newspaper in the morning and you read things and you see that, okay, you read about, let's say, a car accident, the car you were there and you could see actually what happened. And then in the paper, it says that the car was blue and the driver was named Jones, but you know that the car was green and the driver was instead called James. All these kind of small things that may be overlooked, these you have a chance to fix as researchers. And you can also go back and fix old citations from the 80s that may be much more recent things coming in. And of course, it's a great potential for outreach. And during this course, we will follow the articles that you will edit by when I'm done today, and you have the chance to edit until we meet again in March. And we're going to see how many people actually are viewing the pages that you have been editing. So this will be part of your task, but also the great potential, because Wikipedia takes very small time, very little time to edit, and you have a great millions, billions of people that actually have the potential to read your stuff that you're producing. As you know, we have 3 Ds at university. We do research, education, and science outreach. And when I talk to researchers, I ask them, research is really what they love to do. That's why they're there. That's why get them up in the morning and they go to work and say, this is so cool and so fun. And teaching, a lot of people like to teach, but for a number of people, teaching is the way to make sure that you get food on the table when the funding agencies maybe not supporting you as much as your research actually deserves. And then science outreach, that's what you do when you have time left over. And when is that? Never. So the science outreach, unfortunately, is something that we rarely do. So what I do is I ask my researchers to spend 0.1% of their time. That's 2 hours per year on Wikipedia. If you can spend that much time on editing Wikipedia per year, you've done a great contribution to the world and to the as a science outreach. And that's kind of what the time you're going to spend on this assignment this time. It will probably take you a couple of hours, 1 or 2 hours to do this. And it will be a great reward for you afterward to see what it looks like. This is actually something we kind of just do for fun, but this is what it says in the law. It's my translation where it says universities or colleges shall interact with the community and provide information about their activities and seek to ensure that research conducted at the university or college will benefit mankind. That's big words, but this is something we have to do, not something we can do just because we think it's fun. So how do we do this? Well, I go back a long time. We started this at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences back in 2014. So I've been active now for 5 or 6 years and educate maybe a couple of hundred PhD students per year in how to edit Wikipedia. So there have been a number of thousands of PhD students actually know how to edit Wikipedia these days. This is an article. We had a researcher working on something called surgical stress. I don't know if you know the word surgical stress, but that's kind of what the kind of stress that the body's experiences when you're putting there on the surgery table and the surgeon puts the knife right into your body. What happens? This is what is called surgical stress. He Googled surgical stress, and you can see that he found this paper, Stress Response to Trauma and Surgery, that had been cited more than 800 times. And that's the one which is top on Google when he Googled it. 800 citation is a lot. I'm not a half-bad researcher, but most of my papers have not been cited more than 800 times. So this is a big deal. What he did was he went out, he wrote a Wikipedia article about surgical stress. And you know, the Wikipedia article is kind of like a micro review, a small review that contains the history, the methods, and so forth. And what happens? Bang, boom, he beats the guy with his 800 citations, because that's how Google works. If there is a Wikipedia article, after either it comes up first or it comes after the paid articles that may be there on your word that you have Googled. But surgical stress is definitely something which is in this case was lifted up because he put it on Wikipedia. If you look at a Wikipedia article, you have the article, then you also have a talk page. Talk page is a place where you can discuss the content. So I come from a department of ecology where we had people which are pro-organic farming and those who are against organic farming. And if you would have them editing the same page on organic farming, of course, you may have problems. So you have the talk page where you can discuss the content and you can say, why would you write this? Why do you write that? So when you're going into an article and you haven't been there editing before, you may want to take a look at a talk page and just see, is this a discussion that people have been over before? But we also have the view history tab. And if you click on the view history of any Wikipedia article, you get into the revision history. Here you can see that any revisions that have been made will be still here. And that means that you're not responsible for the content of the article as such, but you're responsible for the edit you have done. And this is a big difference. So you can go in here, you can say, this is what I did. Then other people have come in and changed this in a different direction. So it's not necessarily that you have to be responsible for everything. But it's also so that you can look at who has done this. And in this case, it's Odd Höglund. And if we click on his name, we go out on his user page. And these user pages do exist for a number of universities, including Örebro University. So you will have a chance to create these pages. This is not necessary. Some people, they want to stay anonymous, and that's fine. Some people want to use this as a part of their CV and say that I'm actually active out here. So I give you the opportunity to use the Örebro corresponding user page and to create this one. And the reason is this, that we wanted to have a possibility for, you can see the banner and a picture that represent the university. And we wanted to have this for people to be able to say that they are doing this as a part of their profession. And typically I say that if you write about things that deal with research, you can use these pages. And when I edit things about, Justin Bieber, Lady Gaga, or whatever is more important in life, then I use my private account. I have something else when I do those kind of edits. But this is something we started. And when I started this in 2013, we went outside in the world just to see what people had done at Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Stanford, and try to find some information and how they were using Wikipedia in their science outreach. And I found nothing. So I contacted the Wikimedia Foundation in San Francisco and asked them, what kind of insights can you give me? How can we use this at the university and academic level? And what are the good examples around in the world? They said, so many people have tried, nobody has succeeded, but I think you in Sweden are organized enough to carry this through, so good luck. And here we are. And as I said, you're now among the perhaps couple of thousand PhD students that go through this. So we're working on this. And I hope that after this course and the evaluation from the Research Council, that this will be even more widespread. This is what the page, my user page looks like, for example. And so we have the corresponding one for Örebro. And people do care. Please speak out if you've been, you know, sometimes you feel maybe that your research is not super interesting. So let's say if anyone has experienced that, let's say you go to a party, there's loud music playing, people are chatting, and all of a sudden somebody steps up to you and say, you know, so what kind of research do you do? And the music is turned down, there's a big crowd and everybody wants to know more. Anyone who experienced that? No, because it doesn't happen, right? People out there, they're not really that interested, as interested as we are, that's what we think. But if we look at the Wikipedia traffic statistics, and this is something which is available on our articles, we can actually go in and see how many people are viewing the pages we're editing. And in this case, the surgical stress, you can see that he has got about 1,000 views for over 90 days. And if we release press releases, if we send out press releases, we can see that we get an immediate interest in Wikipedia. You can see here the black arrow indicates the date when the press release goes out. There is an immediate interest and then it kind of fades again. So if you are producing some super cool research and you know that the press release department at the university will send out something, make sure that you're also on Wikipedia, that within those 24 hours where you will have the attention span. Of course, in some cases, if you publish this in really high impact journals, they may have some limitations on when you can go out with the research. So just make sure that you don't press publish before you actually, if you have such a ban. But in most cases, we're not publishing in Nature or Science maybe, and then it's fine to be there when the press release comes out. This is a more recent example from last September or 15 months back. You know, we've always been saying about life on Mars, but here they actually show that there was life on Venus. And you can see how this went from maybe 5,000 views per day up to 150,000 over a couple of days, maybe 200,000, and then fades down again and goes back. So you can see this immediate interest, and that's when you need to be there and then say what things are. That doesn't, of course, mean that you shouldn't be there other times as well, because people may find this interesting and cool and go in and want to read about it. And that's what we're going to find out. And the press releases are a good way to describe your research. And typically what you do is you take your difficult to understand research and you turn it into layman's language. And this is an advantage. And here you can see that even if you don't know Swedish, you can see that the text in the press release on top corresponds quite well to the one that we entered on Wikipedia further down. Some small changes to make sure that we are not having a self-plagiarism, which could be a problem. Typically it's not. Some links, and especially the most important part is that we have a link back to the journal where this was published. So all the citations or all the edits we do, we follow by a citation. And Wikipedia was in 2005 deemed as trustworthy as Encyclopedia Britannica. They made the journal Nature made a comparison between Encyclopedia Britannica and Wikipedia and sent out 40 different articles from both of these encyclopedias for peer review anonymously to which source the information came from, and the peer reviewers came back and say that the sources were equally good. Number of errors were the same. And this was, of course, contested by Encyclopedia Britannica, who made a lot of money from producing research or producing this encyclopedian content. But Wikipedia was free, as it is still. And since then, Encyclopedia Britannica are not any longer selling books. So they had somewhat problems afterwards to be as money-making as they were before. Anyhow, how do we do this? This is an example of a article of a beetle, and you can see what it looks like just nicely. This is in Swedish, doesn't matter. We had a researcher at SLU, Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, and we asked him whether he had edited Wikipedia before or not. And he said no. And then we said, perfect, you're our guinea pig. We're gonna use you as a tryout. So he starts here in November editing, he had a little text and a picture, and then he would like to have one of those taxa boxes, which is what you can see to the right, which is kind of the content, what this species belongs to, and some categories and so forth. But he went on Christmas vacation, and this is what it left like. And I know for myself that I leave a manuscript on my desk and it's half finished, and I go on vacation, nothing has happened to it when I come back. But in his case, the community has been there and fixed these things for him. And that's what's so great about Wikipedia, that you're not alone. Other people will step in, they will help you. And that's, you know, that's like leaving your home in a havoc, and in the morning you come back and everything is very nice. And that's just how you would like life to be. And that's how Wikipedia is. If you look here at the history, you can go back here, you can see that he starts here before lunchtime. And then during lunch break, somebody else steps in and edits Wikipedia. And if you are editing in Swedish Wikipedia, I should just comment that this person called Iger may show up and have some comments on your edits and fix some things. Iger is a retired person living in southern part of Sweden, and he's claimed to edit Wikipedia 24/7. He is typically very fast. So if you start editing, he may show up. In this case, it's actually 1 hour later, and that's probably he was on lunch himself before he started editing. But typically he comes within 3, 4, 5 minutes. He's very good at Wikipedia. He used to be not so super diplomatic, but these days I think he has gone a little nicer. So see his edits and other people's edits as something which is welcome, that you learn from, and they are there also trying to make Wikipedia better, not to make your work not working. So they should treat you nicely and just appreciate. This is what I do. I work on mosquitoes. I work on bacterial mosquitoes. And we discovered a new family of bacteria. This was like the first time in 50 years in this part of Tree of Life that we had a new family. And we were inheriting a number of colonies from an old lady who had been feeding mosquitoes on herself for 40 years, looking at what repellents for mosquitoes. So with one hand having a repellent, on the other not having one. And at the age of 80 somewhere, she gave the colonies to us to continue the work. And she died now a couple of years ago at the age of 95, not from the mosquitoes, but because of high age. And we published this article. You can read the abstract here, but I'm not really sure if you understand what it says. I have a hard time myself. So instead, I asked my PhD student to write a Wikipedia article about this, because these bacteria not only are they new, they're also cool because they only found in malaria mosquitoes, or mosquitoes, vector mosquitoes. So she wrote this one. And we also, for her educational purposes, we also wrote a press release. So she got the idea of how to write the press release. And when we sent it out, we published this on Wikipedia. But this was something that we created in the sandbox. So for each user on Wikipedia, you have something called the sandbox. And this is kind of a safe haven where Iger or anyone else will not step in unless you ask them to. This is visible if you want to go there. So you can use this if you work on this as a group assignment, or if you have friends or that you want to invite to edit your things. But you're not supposed to go in here and do stuff unless you're asked to by the person who owns the sandbox. So once she created this in English and Swedish, and once the press release went out, she put this on Wikipedia. And now we can use this to go back and add more articles as they are published by us and other researchers in the field. So this is an easy way for us to have a place where we can put our research. And again, you may feel that it's only you and your supervisor in the whole world who cares about the research you do. But in this case, you can see here that another editor has come in, reviewed the page, and said, great job. And I think that's the reward that you should get from time to time as a PhD student, knowing that what you're doing is actually interesting. Now this took her maybe a day or so, and I told you that I wanted you to spend maybe a couple of hours per year, and that would make a difference. So I'll show you another example. This is also what I do. I work on viruses, not corona in this case, but this is on a baculovirus and an IFLA virus. This is a new virus we discovered in a Chinese moth. I don't know how much you know about insects, but you can see that the guy in panel A looks happy and the one in C not so happy. So the one in number C is infected. So I went in, I changed here the Flavirida to update the number of species, the taxonomy list. I added a reference back to our paid publication in +1 where we have published this. And if you go down and look at the revision history, you can see here I started like 2133. So 9:30 at night, 22nd of December, you know, a time of the year when you have nothing else to do. And then I spent maybe 15 minutes or so to edit this, which leaves me one hour, 45 minutes to do more edits on Wikipedia. And what did I do? Not so much, but I actually changed this article from being incorrect to being correct, and having all these number of viruses and that people are coming in there also can go back to the publication. And if you're publishing in open access journals, these are more cited on Wikipedia because more people who are outside the academic shell can actually read them and access them. So that's one of the reasons to publish in open access, to make sure that people actually can get your information. If you belong to a center, I was out at the Center for Biological Control at the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences, and they invited me. They had as a task in their center to disseminate information about biological control. This was the article on biological control when they started. You can see it. There's a little text. There are no pictures. There's only one link to a Swedish newspaper, and that was it. This is not what you and I would regard as a good Wikipedia article. But instead, we went out and we made some changes. I came around and gave them a possibility to talk about a little about Wikipedia. And let's see if I can show you what it looks like now these days. I just Googled biologisk bekämpning. You can see here that we have on top a number of paid articles, but to the right here, we have the article by biological control. And if I click here, and now we are live, this is what it looks like. And they are the ones who actually made almost all these edits. So if you look at this article, you can see that the size has increased a lot. We have a number of pictures. And if we go to the end, we have loads of references. This is what makes Wikipedia such a trustworthy source. And in the end, they also have a link back to their competence center for biological control. So all of this they made. And this took them maybe a day or so. They were 10 researchers. I was there in the morning. They had some ideas on what they wanted to do, the content, and in the afternoon they wrote the texts. And since then, they had help from a person, research communication person at the university who helped them to enter this into Wikipedia. But they could have done them themselves as well, although in those days it was a little more difficult than it is today. So this is something you can do if you belong to a center and you know that the world is interested in what you do. Please do so. And I'll go back to my presentation. Now let's see. Oh yeah, you guys are probably going to write a thesis in the end as your PhD students. As you know, this is going to be a lot of effort. And in the very end, you probably spend months, weeks and months on writing this thesis and the summary. You gather all this good information about your research topic from lots of parts of the world. And in the end, nobody's going to read it. Not really true, right? Because you will probably read it, and your supervisor, the opponent, someone in the research committee, your mother. Apart from those, nobody cares. And we think this is a bit unfortunate. So what we do at Uppsala University is that when people are nailing their thesis, we send out an email and we ask them to spend 1 more hour editing Wikipedia, gathering information from their thesis, and to contact us if they need any support. So this is done automatically, and we send out maybe, I don't know, 200 or 300 of those per year. I don't know exactly how many PhDs we have, but something. This is one example where you can see what the article looked like from the beginning. This is one of the Swedish articles about the Rödhalsek, European sawfly. It's done by robot. We have a lot of robot-made articles in Sweden. For example, all the lakes, any lake you want to go swim in, you can check the chemical status and presence of crocodiles and whatever. All that information is out there on the Swedish Wikipedia. Any lakes, and in this case is the number of insects that have been created. Now you can see the only thing it says here is that it exists. But after an hour or so of a PhD student, she added information here that it's the pest species and the life cycle. And you can see the number of references have increased a lot. And in the very end, there is a link back also to her thesis, if people want to read more about her work. That's a possibility. So Ida Kolberg made this and edited, and this is something people do. And I just want to end this part of the presentation to show you that you are not alone. All of these are universities at some stage, more or less been involved and working on Wikipedia, and this kind of goes back and forth and up and down depending on who's present. But at the moment, I think Karolinska and Lund University and you all have been shown interested to do things during the spring. SLU have courses, and Uppsala University have courses ongoing. Gothenburg University been very busy. Stockholm University also shown interest. So this is, as I said, it goes back and forth who is the most active at the moment. And to make life easier for me and for you, if you want to contact me, this is email, so we can send it to wikipedia@uu.se. So you just have to remember, if you're at Uppsala University, that you want to have some questions about Wikipedia, and I and others people, we can read this as this. So I see that something has come in the chat. Should I just check what it says? Oh, right. No, we don't have crocodiles in Sweden, but good question. So one would be happy not to get bitten at least. Anyway, I go back to biological control, and I will show you some ways to edit Wikipedia, just so you get a hand of it. And I will in the end, either we email it out or we put it in the chat. I don't know what is easiest, Sara, but we can discuss it with the number of instructions and the manuals and so forth. I can put it in the chat right now, and I can email it to Sara as well if there are people who are not being able to participate during this talk.
Yes,
just
please,
so you can
please
see.
email it as well, so
yeah,
to me, and then I will put it to the rest. So
this is the Wikipedia about biological control. I go into English here just to make your life a little more easy. So this is what a Wikipedia article looks like. And you start by either creating an account, and to create an account, you have a username and you have a password, and this CAPTCHA that you write down here, all this will be in the manual. So you will get the information on how to do this, but I'll just show you. This is easy. And then you can log in if you want to. It doesn't really matter, but for some purposes, I will do it right now. You can edit Wikipedia without being logged in, but then people will see your IP number on your. So if you want to do this anonymously, or depending on, but at least that they cannot read your computer, then you can log in. If you log in, you have
question?
Yes, go ahead.
What would be best to take as your user email, account email? Is that the university you are currently affiliated with, or your personal account? Because, well, the PhD students, they do change after they're finished. So what would you recommend? Link it to your personal email or to your university email?
No, the personal I think would be easier, because that one you can access all the time. I mean, this is an email that I typically get maybe 1 or 2 emails per year from Wikipedia. They don't ask for funding. It's not like, you know, ResearchGate or LinkedIn where you get things all the time. So it's very rare that you will get an email. It's mainly for you if you forget your password. And at occasions, people, if they want to ask something on the talk page, you may get an email. So they don't have to sit and wait for things for a very long time for your response if you're not watching. But I would use my personal email, and it's not visible anywhere. So that's the easiest. But if you want to talk about a user page, I would, if you want a user page, I would create one user page where I am and one user page where I'm going. So I have one at SLU where I was a researcher, and I have a new one at Uppsala University where I am a researcher. So it's kind of where your affiliation, if you want to build up and have like a for your CV or a record of where you've been. We can look here at the sandbox. I told you there is a sandbox. And in this case, this is what Örebro University looks like. I've written some text also from the course, but this is the one picture we got, I think, from Sarah a number of years ago. So here you could enter your name and so forth and describe yourself, kind of what I do. I have, as you know, if I go back here to my, let's see, I have things in my way, that's why. Here, I have my user page here. So this is where it's, and here I can go in and edit it if I want to. I'm going to show you how to edit Wikipedia just in a few seconds. And so if you want to edit, you just click on edit. And you may get into what is called the source editing, which this is kind of what Wikipedia used to look like before 2015. So if you have friends that have been editing Wikipedia and say, yeah, that's not so easy. I was writing this before. This is what it used to look like. And there are a few instances when you need to be here or it's easier to be here, but in most of the cases, that's not. So I click on this pencil, I go into the visual editing, and once you're there, you can start edit just as if this were in the Word document. So I can say that here, and now we're live. It can be an important, I say, important component. Now is something else. Okay, I just changed a little here. And then I say, maybe I want to add a citation or a link. I say that I may not know, maybe I don't know what a human is. So I click on the link. I look for human articles, species of hominid. Yeah, that sounds like what I'm looking for. Okay. Add a human here. And then I want to add a citation. I click on cite. And I add a DOI, digital object identifier of my article. And let's see if I have one here, which is suitable. Let me take this one. And I add it here. Just click generate. And now it will import the information from my DOI and create an article. Here, I actually wrote an article called windsurfing in swans, in mute swans. And now this is edited. I click insert, it's there, and it's found here as number 2. And if I go down here in the reference list, it should also be there as number 2. Let's see. But I don't see it. We'll find out why. Okay. Anyway, I edit here. Oh, it's because I haven't clicked it. Now it should be. So if I go here and then I click publish changes, because I think, yeah, those were good things I did. I can come here and describe what I want. I can also review my changes. So I can go in here and I see that I changed some text, I added a word. And I also, let's see if I can go down here on the list. I also have it in, I also entered my research. And here it says check date values in. This comes up because I think it should say 2016 September and not 09. You don't need to change these things. There are people doing this all the time with automatic robots that go out and fix this on Wikipedia. The important information is that you add the information, not that you do it exactly correctly, because people will help you with that. So if I feel satisfied with this, I can describe what I changed. I said added reference. Yeah, that's fine. And then I click publish changes again, and then this will have been done. And now, since I'm just fooling around and destroying this article, I will not click publish changes, so I go back. Let's say that you are doing something and you would like to enter a picture into Wikipedia. And I will leave this one. Here we go. You can do that from anywhere on Wikipedia. You can click on any picture. I click on this one, and here it says more details. I click on this one too, and then I come to something called Wikimedia Commons. Wikimedia Commons is the place for all media files on Wikipedia. And if we click here and go on the main page, you can see that there are now 80 million freely usable media files. And freely used means that you can do anything you like. If you want to use these in your presentations, if I would say that, oh, this is a nice tree, I want to make a postcard and sell it and make a fortune by doing so. Yeah, you're free to do that. I want to take small pieces of it, change it around, whatever. This means that if you add something here, you will give up your rights for it. And therefore, when you upload things, you have instructions of what you do, and things that you take for yourself are easy to do, and people that have done. And then there are some rules if you want to have exceptions and some possibilities to put some limits on it. But mainly it's taking your own pictures. And in my case, for example, when we took a picture for the Wikipedia article on bacteria, we did so that we took a couple of pictures, one that we used for publication and one that we used for Wikipedia. So they're not the same. So we can, and the same, if you're out in the field and taking pictures, take two pictures that look slightly different. And then you can use one for your paper and one for Wikipedia. But this is a great place to go for your things. Now, I just last want to show you that if you want to edit Wikipedia in another language than English, and you think that the Wikipedia article in English is great, you actually have a possibility to make a translation from that other article. And there is a translation tool. I will send you also a manual on how the translation tool works. But in principle, it's a place where you can go in. And if I click here on history of knitting, for example, I had a PhD student working on the history of knitting. You will get the English article. In this case, I go into the Swedish. And if I want to change, I can just add a text and it will automatically translate it. This is not the perfect translation, and Wikipedia will also ask you to actually go through the text. If you haven't done anything, it will not help. You will not be able to move it. But the good thing is that all the links, all the pictures, all the references, all those things are easily moved into the Swedish Wikipedia, for example, if you create this. And you get into a different kind or another sandbox, so to say, where you can have your translation. You can continue to work on it also outside this translation. But that's a possibility. I will just see if there's anything I missed. Not really. I will then upload a number of things in the chat for you and that you can use in your work. Let's see if I succeed with that. So there will be a place where you can work on where I will get the information on what you have done on Wikipedia, a dashboard where we can see what progress you have made, and that's going to be part of it. I will now put down the task. Here it comes, I hope. So this is what you're supposed to do. Edit a couple of articles, either two in English or one in English and one in Swedish or in your mother tongue, depending on what your mother tongue is. Here is a manual of how to do things. Get started with Wikipedia, how you can edit and how you can reach and make your user page if you would like to. And also I add the file of the translation tool. In case you say that you speak a language which is different from English, but the English article is very good to use and you don't want to use it for that you would like to translate what's all there. Okay, and that leaves us a couple of minutes, I see, before 10 o'clock, and you're supposed to do something else then. So I say thank you very much for your attention, and I will see you again the 2nd of March, where we will go through your edits and look at what you have done, what kind of difficulties you have been going through, how easy it has been, how difficult it has been, what kind of the success you've had. And we also, if you have any trouble on the way, just email me, Wikipedia, uu.se, and I will help you through if any problem arises. Okay.
Thank you so much, Olle. This is so interesting. And I just, before we finish, are there any questions now directed to Olle? No questions?
I think there are no questions, but I could just say that I've already started editing my research area. Thanks a lot. This is very inspiring.
Yes, and I can give you just one tip there. If you think it's difficult to know where to start, you can list 5 keywords that describe your research and then go into those articles, and that will probably help you to get started.
About me, I'm the editor and I was the editor and head of the op-ed page, Debatt, at the leading Swedish newspaper, Dagens Nyheter, for 10 years almost. I'm retired now, and I'm doing other things. In fact, I'm studying at the university. So, and before that, I was the managing editor and was responsible for editorial development. And I don't have the background as most journalists. I'm in fact a Master of Science in Engineering Physics, and I worked with development of microwave antennas before I became a journalist many years ago. Okay, that's me. And I was the editor of the op-ed page. And if you look up Wikipedia, which is sort of connects to the former, the last lesson, so you can see that it's a short name for opposite the editorial page or opinion editorial, and this definition doesn't say very much, and it can't explain why the Debatt, the page I was editor for, was so influential in the Swedish debate. Because if you look at op-eds, especially in other countries, they're often very boring. And you can ask yourself, why are they so boring? And this is, I found a blogger who said that, I mean, you look at the New York Times op-ed section, it's like warmed over, recycled, 1 week late clickbaiting. So Dagens Nyheter had some sort of op-ed page from, I think it started in 1960. And I think the idea was that to have people who knew things, I mean, they could be politicians or researchers and so on, to write about things they knew, but didn't really work. So in 1977, a new editor came up with this really simple idea. And this idea is so simple, but still I have to speak a lot about it to really get you to understand how to use this idea if you want to write for Dagens Nyheter or for any other Swedish op-ed page. And you could say that all op-ed pages in Sweden, and I think in other Nordic countries as well, has adapted this idea. It's super simple. I will tell you about it now. I will reveal the secret now. It was, I would call it an invention. It's simple, but it was an invention. And the idea was to choose articles that carry news. And this concept of news is a hard one. So I will go into depth what is news later on. The invention also demanded exclusive right to publish this article, so the authors couldn't publish the news in some other media, radio, TV, or newspapers. You had to publish the news in the Debatt. And the third idea was to choose topics that interest many, not too narrow. And he also only published one article per day to make it very exclusive. This is the topic of the day. And he gave no free tickets to important people. I mean, I have myself said no to even Stefan Löfven, the former Prime Minister of Sweden, because he had written so boring piece. And he also, from the beginning, he and his colleague encouraged follow-ups in other media, but demanded mentioning of the source. And this invention seems rather simple, but they worked for a long time to convince politicians and researchers and other interesting people to write for the paper in this way. So this is the idea. And the result? These are billboards in Swedish löpsedlar from the Debatt, and this shows that it still works. This means that when Dagens Nyheter is made, they think that the most interesting piece of the day is an article on the Debatt. So, and I've had a lot of articles that made the billboard. So, and the one I'm think is the most special one is the middle one in the top row. It's the former foreign minister of Sweden who says that she says okay to Palestine. Sweden recognizes Palestine as a state. And this was made on this page, not in any other way. So, and I've also, which I think it's possible to see here, that I've encouraged researchers to write on the Debatt. So I think I've had a lot of researchers writing on the Debatt. But it's important to understand when we start to speak about news, it's not the topic of the day. It's not news. News can often be more interesting if it's connected to current events, but you can't just write about something that's on the agenda for the day. You have to have something new to say to make it on this page. So news is key. Let me go further into news. What is news? It could be a new initiative, a proposal, maybe from political parties or politicians, or even from researchers or political scientists and so on. It can be new facts, research findings. It can be a new and original idea. Mustn't be facts, it can be ideas as well. This one is I'm especially fond of, challenging an established truth. I think that researchers can do this if they dare to. And you can reveal that fundamental facts stated in a public debate are misleading or false. I guess this should be possible in many debates, as politicians try to use facts that support their opinions, and they may often not be the correct overall picture of the topic. You can, of course, reveal a scandal. We have had some articles like that. And this one is also very interesting, and I think the second most read article on the Debatt is someone who announced his changed opinion on a topic. And let me go further into this news topic. We can say that unwanted news are more interesting than wanted news. I mean, news that some people don't like are, of course, more interesting than news that everyone wants. Unexpected news is better than expected news. For example, you can understand that something will happen and this was probable. News that sets the agenda is better than news that, if you write, it can often be good to write on something that is on the agenda for the day. But if you have a news article that sets the agenda, I mean that gets everyone to discuss another topic, then it's better. And if it affects many, it's better than if it affects a few. If it has a big impact on society, it's better than if it has a small impact. And it's also important to understand that as long as I've been the editor, I've seldom asked people to write. And the reason for this is that I don't know who has news to tell. I can't figure it out, because if I could, then it wouldn't be news. So I've relied on people sending in a lot of articles. In fact, I've read something like on average 30 articles every day and only published one of them. And that means that I have had a lot of articles to choose from to find the one that I thought had the best news in it. Let me then give you some examples of articles that had big impact. This one is, of course, the one we published in the beginning of 2020, and 22 researchers. They're sort of famous now, and of course, this you can discuss if they were correct, but this article came when everybody seemed to. I mean, there wasn't any debate on how we should meet this COVID. So they sort of opened the debate, and I believe that this article, if you include the replies, I think it's read by something like 1 million people. So this is how researchers can really have a heavy impact on what will happen next. So just the text. And I believe that, as you can see here, we published an article and then we published 5 replies or 4 replies, and they answered the replies in another article. I would say that if you read all of these articles, you get a good view of how you could argue here. And this is also something that's important. I think I will have that on a slide later on, but you must understand that your task is not to present the definite truth in a subject. Your task is to point to some interesting aspect of a topic. that might be forgotten or overseen or something like that. That's the topic. I think it's important not to think that you to try to write an article that sort of is the definitive truth in a topic. And this, the left one I talked about before, and the middle one is Theresa May, the former Prime Minister of Great Britain, who wrote exclusively for Dagens Nyheter on why Sweden is important for the British business. And the third one is from the Cancer Research Foundation, who scares you with that we will have twice as many cancer sick in just 25 years. The left one here is about traffic and people killed in traffic, and they were experts and researchers. They demanded that you shouldn't be allowed to drive faster than 20 kilometers an hour in cities. The middle one is also researchers, and this is 2016, and they're talking about gang violence. And this was, I mean, it's 5-6 years ago. And the right one is also interesting because it's a governmental investigator who speaks on personal assistance, a controversial topic. And this had a big impact also on the debate. And now the second most read article, and it's by a researcher in Gothenburg who says he has changed his mind on how the schools should work. And this was read by, I think, something like 300 or 400,000 people. So, and it had a big impact on the debate. And it's interesting that some articles, if you go back in history, you can see that some articles have had a very big impact on the debate. I believe we had an article on maybe in 1980 or something about how to take care of elderly people. That was made the whole debate in the society to go in another direction. So. And this is another article written by a researcher on Finland that's said to have a much better school in Sweden, but he means that no, it's not the political reforms that have made the Finnish school so good. So this is, and the reply is written by 4 Finnish researchers, and this is also, I think, an interesting debate where you can get a feeling for how you should discuss this topic. Another article by researchers on psychic health and that bad bosses are the reason for people not feeling good. Also made a big impact. And this is several articles on begging and a really big debate with politicians and researchers and people from organizations. And the first article was written by a young boy begging himself. So. Okay, what topics should you choose when you write your first article for the end debate? You can. It's good if you choose a topic that's on the agenda right now, what is discussed in society. It's better if you could of course, which I said before, if you can set the agenda with a new topic, but maybe easier to sort of think, do I know something about something that's on the agenda right now? Can I write about it? Broad issues, for example, voters' most important issues, healthcare, school migrations, shootings, can be, of course, be interesting. Internal science debates can be interesting in a broader context. GMO, for example, ADHD, measures for addressing climate change. Then you can discuss, you can say that other researchers are wrong or misinterpreted or something like that. And it's important also to understand that opinions, at least in my view, are not that interesting. Arguments backed by facts are more interesting, because you're writing for, if you're trying to convince the readers to make them change their opinion on things, you must argue with them with facts, or they must follow your way of reasoning. But otherwise it's just, okay, they think it like that, I'm a researcher, I know this is how it should be. That's not why to write. You must use, at least when I decided, I tried to find articles that argue with people. You can have published new research results. We have had that, and you can correct common misunderstandings. That's also very good. And you can have, in your research, you can maybe see ideas for solutions to public problems in any way. And you can deepen knowledge in a topic on the current agenda. You might think that this is discussed now, but people really don't understand what the problems are. Okay, that's topics. Let's go into how to write. I've seen somewhere that to the left, the academic writing, you start with an introduction, a background, then you have some sort of structured arguments, and then you land in a conclusion. But that's not the way to write journalistic text. You must start with a setup. Why should the reader read? I mean, a newspaper is not read by people who wonder, what have they come up with now? I have to read this one. They are scanning the newspaper. They're looking for interesting pieces to read. And then you should start with something that tell them, why should I read this? Some sort of setup you must have in the beginning. And then the article can be very much the same way as an academic article, maybe not with that many footnotes, or in fact, no, maybe it's good to have sources, but not that like footnotes. And then you must land in what should be done, why is it important, and who should do it, sort of pointing forwards. What will be done now? So this is another way to structure your article. And this leads to a simple formula. The lead paragraph, the setup, why should the reader care? Start with that. Don't start with introduction and background and the old Greeks, they did it like this and so on. You must start with, convince them to continue reading. And then arguments in some sort of order. You can have numbers or bullets. Might often be easier to follow along, because this is the articles which we will see later on are rather long, so you have to have some structure that makes it easy to read the whole article. And the finishing paragraph, as I said, who should do what when. And if many background facts are needed for the article, put them in separate summary, because then it will stop the, if you don't do it like that, it will be hard to follow the text. And if some important development is, you want to show an important development, you can use a graph, and the editor can help you with, you don't have to make this graph yourself. You can give them some sketch and they will make it look like Dagens Nyheter graphs. And the authors should also be properly presented. I mean, what are you researching, and who am this author? And this is the usual problems with text I've seen. As I've said, I've read extremely many texts, and these are the most common problems. Too long-winded and too long introduction. If you don't, I mean, if you have a good setup, if you have a good lead paragraph, then you can start your arguments, but you mustn't be too long-winded. The text must be somewhat condensed and easy to follow. Many texts have a missing or diffuse connecting thought. I mean, it's hard to follow. There must be some sort of structure in the text. It's hard. You can do this in several ways, but there must be some sort of connecting thought. The conclusion is sometimes unclear. What do you want will happen? Who should do what? Why is this important further on? And the background facts are included in the text, which makes it hard to read. Should be lifted out. It's too abstract. This is also very common. It lacks concreteness or examples. Text resides only on a meta level. So you must be, it's very good to have some examples or, and too topic introvert. You're not addressing common people. I mean, the readers of Dagens Nyheter are people, citizens. I usually say that there are citizens interested in important topics for the society. So this is how to think when you write. You're not writing for politicians, not writing for other researchers. You're writing for citizens who are interested in the society. And how, if you get so many, for example, I think might be some 100 articles every week and only publish 7, you must have some really good principles for selections, so you can do your work. And of course, as I've said, news content. Is there anything new in this text? Is it surprising? Is it unexpected? Is the subject interesting for many? Is it on the agenda, or does it set the agenda? Is it well argued and well written? Is it explicit? Does the authors have knowledge, experience, or power? Sometimes the Debatt has been criticized for not letting ordinary people write, but I believe that the interesting authors are those who have knowledge, experience. You can have, experience or power. So And why write as a researcher? First and foremost, it's your duty. It's a so-called, I don't know what's called in English, but the tredje uppgift and the third task. You can't just say that politicians don't understand you. If you have knowledge about something that's is an ongoing debate in the society, it's your duty. It's part of your job to speak up. And the readers of the newspaper are citizens and voters. Your article might make the debate more factful. We're living in a world now where which is polarized and where facts aren't always in the center of the debate. So it's, as a researcher, that's what you should do, to put facts into the debates. And this is the Debatt, and some of the other op-ed pages are the most, and the Debatt is the most important platform for presenting issues. And you will have a huge impact if you have something interesting to say, because all other media are reading the Debatt, so it will spread like further on. So it's important platform. And as I said before, you don't have to present a definite truth. An important argument or one interesting fact is enough. And last, women are often underestimate their ability to contribute to the debate. I only know this small part of this topic, so I can't write in a broader perspective. Men always believe that they can talk about everything, so you have to sort of understand that you may have something interesting to say, and you could go somewhat beyond your topic, because you might understand the topic in a broader sense as well. I think that's very important. I've discussed this with female researchers on conferences before, so I know this is a fact. Okay, let us go to some practicalities. This is how long the text should be. Something like 6,200 to 6,800 characters, including spaces. And you should mail the text to Debatt, debatt@dn.se, and you don't need to call in advance. You might call the editor, but often it's as good to just send it. And you shouldn't send a PDF. You should send something like a Word document. And relevant signatures, one is enough. At least when I was the editor, I preferred one writer, but if the other ones are relevant, but don't have too many signatures, because unless they are interesting. For example, if you had all researchers in one department, then it would be interesting, but or maybe all of one sort, then might be interesting, but one is enough if the text is good. Often it's easier to write a good text if it's just one writer. And the editor writes the headline, the stand first kicker, and you can't see that before you, so they will do that themselves. And the reason for this is that the headline tells how the editor interprets this article. And the editors also have access to translators. So if you write in English or another language, they have, if they like the text, they might they have the possibility to translate it. Okay. And some facts. The new editor of the Debatt is Amanda Johansson Muri, and she started, I think it was last week or something like that. And this is the email address. All articles are linked from Twitter, and you have a web address where you can see all the articles, and there's the phone number. And last, a really long text on how to write in Swedish then, den.se, and I've written that one, so very good. Okay, so I have some topics that you could discuss later on, but I'm now will open for questions.
Thank you so much, Nils. And if you stop sharing your screen, we can see each other better for the question time here.
My mouse is, I can't see, where is it?
There we go. Now we can see each other. So very interesting. I can tell you that when I was a reporter at Rapport, every morning, when I was new, I had to work in the morning and get up in 3 o'clock in the night. And every morning there was a DN Debatt story that I made. So I know the importance of being on the Debatt and how it spreads throughout the media landscape. And we have,
you could say that this is sort of a I mean, it could be another newspaper, it could be another page, but now it's the definition of where should, I mean, people who write important pieces, they have this as their first place to go. So it's sort of a fulfilling page. So
yeah, but you have a lot of power being an editor at the end of that.
Yeah.
But it also says a lot about the media landscape and how important it is to know the game and how useful
exactly
it will be with your tips. Now I have a question from Maria Elisson, who's also a journalist.
Well, not now. I'm a research communicator here at Örebro University, but I used to work in media as a debate editor. But I have some questions about details. You said one signature is enough. Do you mean if you're a researcher, is it better to team up with more to give more weight to whatever opinions you have or views you present?
If it's relevant, but if you, I mean, we have on the Debate, we have, for example, Bo Rothstein, who has written a lot of articles, and he's I think he's one of the most cited Swedish researchers. So he's a really good researcher, and he dares to write, to have strong opinions. And of course, then if he writes them himself, you can feel his language, his personality. So that's, I could see from the internal statistics that his pieces were very read. Another example is Torbjörn Tännsjö, who is a philosopher, also very much the same. He's good at writing, he has strong opinions, he's very fact-based. So if you can write like that, I think that's the best. But if you have, of course, if you really care about something or it's very important and you want to sort of change the debate, maybe it might be good if you can find a group of scientists that together give more weight to the topic, of course, but depends very much on. I usually have said that the signatures should be relevant. I mean, if you need more people to put more weight on it, then it's good. But if you're a single researcher writing and you can be more personal, that might be good as well.
I thought you were mentioning Bo Rothstein, that they are like superstars in Swedish debate. I think if you're all new to it, maybe, I mean, it could play a role, I imagine. We had one example of a researcher who teamed up with at that time, influencer, you could say, very, very serious influencer. Who she was. It was about, and they also timed their debate article with Black Friday, and it was about this unsustainable consumption we had. So we had 2 researchers, maybe 3, and also Heidi Andersson, who was famous TV personality at that time. And we used to lift this as a good example when you as a researcher could team up with other people to.
But it's important that they are relevant. So, I mean, you couldn't just take an influencer of any kind who is just famous and doesn't have anything to say in this topic. So.
And I have one follow-up question also, and that was about timing. I think this article about unsustainable consumption timed with Black Friday.
That's a very good point. Yeah, of course.
Is it important if you have an agenda, if you are researching on sunscreens, for instance, is it should you time up with summer season coming up, or should you think like that also?
That's a good point. Yeah, of course, that's a good point.
We actually did that, Ingrid, your colleagues with the plastic in the sea research. We timed in the summer, and then we also joined with Naturvårdsverket and some researchers at Gothenburg University and made the Debatt that summer. Following the seasons and the news agenda, and also there we teamed up with others. But one question from me, Nils. There is a dilemma when we have the media training with the researchers. There is often questions about not daring to have too strong opinions, because there's a dilemma there, because you get critique from your colleagues. And it's kind of hard sometimes to stand out and have strong opinions in the research society. What do you think about that?
Yeah, of course, it's some sort of conflict, but because as a researcher, you shouldn't have strong opinions. You should be very modest and try to have a very factful and nuanced debate. But that's, I believe that you must be part of 2 groups here. I mean, I think you must be a part of the debate society, the debate in the society, and there the rules are different, and you must sort of accept that you get criticized. But if the reason for being in the debate is to put in more facts, and you must draw the conclusion somewhat harder to get people to understand what you mean and the consequences and so on. I think I understand it's a problem, but I think you can't be a scientist in the public debate. You must sort of try to write in a way that doesn't discredit you as a researcher, but you must try to make your points somewhat harder than you should in a science when you're writing in a paper, for example.
Then, thank you. We have a question from Shitaranyan.
I mean, I just have one question. I mean, when you said nuanced writing or well articulated writing, and I agree to that. But then, when you mean facts, so is it that could you have well-informed opinions as well? Because there are some areas of science or culture or religion or whatever where you cannot escape having an opinion of some sort. But of course, that should be grounded, well grounded.
Exactly.
In facts.
But what I meant was that you can't have just bare opinions. You must have some sort of backing for them. Might not be facts, but I mean, to convince people to have something to say, I believe that you can't just, this is my view. That's not enough. You have some sort of reasoning or facts or to convince
maybe
people.
like data, logic, or whatever.
Yes, in
something
some way.
Scientific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Nils? Then we have Ingrid.
Yes, you mentioned that. Thank you for the presentation, by the way. You mentioned that you received about 30 articles per day. So, like, I was wondering, when you receive an article, how long would it take to process? And sometimes you put articles apart for late publication on later times, or how does that work?
That's a good question. Yes, and I'm not sure I want to answer it because it's really fast. And in fact, I had to use the delay function in the mail, not to get people upset. But I would guess that there are two categories that are super simple to understand. This is an article I don't want. It's not good. It takes 10 seconds to read it. And this is an article that I must have. The Prime Minister says that he will now announce that he will quit his job. I mean, you don't have to read many words, and then you understand it. But in the middle, there's articles that maybe I don't understand. I have to read it again. Then it will take some longer time. And sometimes I had articles for a month waiting to have just an opportunity. So maybe half of the articles I could just say no straight away, but some because I don't take the best one for this day and put it in this day. I saved it for later, and maybe let's see tomorrow. I have 30 new ones and I have 15 saved ones, and so you make a list every day of all the articles you have. So very, very different times, but it's very easy to read it super fast. So
then we have a question from Yasenka.
Hey, I am wondering if there are articles or the cases where you ask the writer to rewrite or stuff like that, or do they just get one shot?
No, that's also a good question. I would guess that half of the articles were rewritten in some way. And I often could say something like, this is interesting, but the start is too long-winded. You should have a better start, or you don't end in something interesting. You must have a better ending, and so on. And often, maybe half of the articles was rewritten. So.
Okay.
Any more questions? I think I have thousands of questions.
Yeah, I have a question as well.
Yes.
I was wondering about the headlines and the start of the article. Do the people who wrote the article get a chance to say yes or no?
No.
Or do you get a lot of complaints afterwards that your headline was too much?
Yeah, good questions. No, they don't. They can't see it, because then there will be a lot of arguments back and forth, and I believe that as an editor you understand you have a much better understanding of the readers and the I mean the debate and so on. So it's not possible. And maybe you could also say that any changes I made in the text, the writer had a saying, if it's not just I mean common misspellings or so on, but if I want to make bigger changes in the text, the writer always has to say okay, but they can't see the start and the headline because they don't understand how to write headlines.
And you don't get a lot of complaints.
And I did almost never get any complaints about it. But I know that one of the editors before me, he got a lot of complaints because he wrote headlines that didn't they weren't correct. So.
Okay.
But they were good.
That's not always the same thing, and we have many writers that are afraid of getting misquoted with this headline.
Yeah.
Maria.
You said before that you were addressing, I mean, common people. Anybody should be able to read them. But aren't you having these politicians and policymakers in the back of your head? I mean, they should know about science, for instance. I mean, they could be very relevant for them. Maybe not that relevant for the common people, but maybe very relevant for the political process.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that an article may be in some way directed towards the policymakers or politicians, but you can't write the article addressing those people. You must address the citizens. You must address the citizens, and then you can affect the politicians sort of in a also, but it's a newspaper. You can't. I know I've said no to articles that are almost explicitly addressed to politicians or policymakers, and that's not something for a newspaper. Then you should send them a letter or something.
But Nils, if we have something agenda on the agenda, like we said, Black Friday is on a certain and if we have an article for that date, say it's 13th of November, and how far in advance should we send in the article?
As the process works, as I said, if you get 30 articles a day and then you have a backlist of saved articles, and then I made a planning for maybe 7 to 10 weeks ahead, and then all my planning was preliminary. I didn't decide that for that day, and maybe I get could be good for Black Friday. Then I might have needed a week in advance at least, because if I get it a week in advance, then someone else, for example, a minister says that today we will have a big news, then I could tell them maybe you could have that one another day. So it was always possible to make a puzzle and move articles, and I even had the government to change the date of their decisions. So it's very good to be, for example, 7 to 10 days in advance if you have something strongly connected to a special date, because then it's easier for the editor to make the puzzle.
Thank you. That was very helpful for us, because you don't always know how to.
But of course, you can't be sure. Still, you can't be sure because something can happen and so on. So,
of course. And are there any more questions? But just to summarize, it has been so interesting to have you here, Nils. Thank you very much. And very handy with your concrete tips, and we will save them both for us at the communication departments, and it's very handy for the researchers and the teachers here. So and to always to practice this language, as we talk about so much, clear language is even more important here, which can be a lot of challenge when you're a researcher, because to be clear, as Einstein said it, I think we just quote him, if you can't put it clearly, you haven't understood it.
Exactly.
It's kind of that. And it was also very interesting to hear your views about news values, and how you connect the debate article to news. So
and I would say that most common misunderstanding is the misunderstanding on the concept of news. So it's really important to really understand that, what news is.
Yes. So, and that's also that's why we have it as a part of our media training. What is news, and also the criteria. Yeah, the criteria that you mentioned. So and if you have more questions to Nils, you can write to me, and I will put them forward to Nils. And but if there's no more question now, we will end this session, and a big thanks again, Nils, for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's been very valuable. And I will remind you that your assignment with the debate article about your research is the deadline is the 30th of January, and you can send it to me. You can email me your debate article, and me and Linda will give you feedback. So was there anything else, Linda, that I have forgotten to tell?
I don't think so. That's all, isn't it, for now?
Yes, I think so.
Or should we ask Asimakis, is it anything that you would like to add?
Asimakis is our lecturer in rhetoric, the rhetoric subject. Asimakis, are you with us? No. Maybe he doesn't hear us now, but yeah, I think he put something in the chat. Yeah, he's just adding his microphone now, so soon we will.
Hi, sorry, I have some technical problems. So no, I don't have anything to add. As Sarah said, the deadline is the 30th of January for the article.
Yes, so we have got a lot of inspiration for that article and tips today. So thanks again, and see you all. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.